Had to do this intro 3 times because I don't know what happened. The first time it went all right. Now this time I know I got it. Second time we won't talk about. But anyways, let's get to the best and worst of 2011. Starting with the worst. Enjoy.
Number 10, Spy Kids 4D, All the Time in the World. You know what's worse than a bad kids movie? How about a bad kids movie from a franchise that's been long dead and by a director that can't make a kids movie worth crap? I admit I grew up with the original Spy Kids movies, but I'm well aware as an adult that these films have not aged at all. Not only does it feel like the cheaper version of that Zoom film starring Tim Allen, but it also feels like it should have come out in 2001. You know, when the first film was released. Almost all the acting is awful, the special effects are beyond horrendous, the jokes are so damn stupid, especially with that "oh shit, talking mushrooms" joke, and it's just a boring flick with an equally boring message. Also, let Smell-O-Vision die, we already got enough problems with 3D as it is. Number 9, I Am Number 4. What do you get when you cross a superhero film with the tone of Twilight? Well, you get a shitty movie, of course. For an action film that's produced by Michael Bay, you'd think there'd be a little bit more flair to it, but it just comes off as emotionless and boring beyond belief. The only time the film does actually get a sense of interest in its action was near the end when number 6 shows up. Other than that, there's nothing worthwhile to be seen here, and don't think we're done with Twilight just yet, because we got some more to go off of that. Number 8, Sucker Punch. This was my introduction to Zack Snyder, and boy was this a letdown. Since seeing this movie, I have checked out his other films, some of which were a bit mediocre, but the rest got me to understand why people love this guy. Watchmen, while a bit overrated, was still a pretty kick-ass movie. His remake of Dawn of the Dead was actually on par with the original, and that's saying a lot. However, when you go from those two to this, it's kinda pathetic. It's Zack Snyder's attempt to try and adapt anime fantasies into a feature film, but as good a director as he is, his writing is where it really lacks the most. It's pretty, but it's a pretty big mess. Number 7, The Hangover Part 2. If you know me personally, you'll know that I never really got into the first Hangover back in 2009. Probably because when it came out, everyone wouldn't shut up about it, so when I got around to it, I didn't really see the whole hubbub about it. And this film is also no exception because it's just the same recycled plot from the first movie. The jokes weren't really funny, a lot of the gags they do aren't that enduring, and I just found myself bored watching it throughout the runtime. Say what you will, but this is the kind of comedy that didn't work for me. Sorry. Number 6, The Green Hornet. I'm not a big Seth Rogen fan, and this film didn't really help that at all. What was originally a film planned to be helmed by Kevin Smith, a comic book reader, was then turned into another Seth Rogen comedy that tries to be a superhero flick. The original show starring Van Williams and Bruce Lee was a very entertaining show in the vein of the 60s Batman show, which it crossed over with at one point, but still had a sense of class and dignity to it. This movie, however, does not represent that and opts to go for the most of the same schlock that Rogen has done before in other films. And considering it had Michael Gondry, the director of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and Be Kind Rewind helming it, it's kinda sad. Although it's not the worst superhero movie on the list. That title, however, goes to number 5, The Green Lantern. More green heroes, less green dollars. Ryan Reynolds' third attempt at a comic book film is easily his biggest letdown yet. For the first big screen appearance of the Green Lantern, this was a bigger letdown than anyone had ever hoped for, especially considering they had Martin Campbell attached as director. Although with 4 writers attached to it, it's no wonder this film turned out to be a complete and utter mess. The CGI is awful, the acting is average at best, the writing is all over the place. Screw it, let's just move on. Number 4, Abduction. Once a respected child voice actor, Taylor Lautner has now become a pretentious, lackluster pretty boy, with less talent as he got older. But don't worry, you'll be seeing him again on the list. As an attempt to build a franchise after Twilight, he tries to do a film about who his real family is and being hunted by a mastermind who later buys him a burger. For a director like John Singleton and a cast full of A-class talents like Alfred Molina, Sigourney Weaver, and Michael Nikovitz, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, you'd think there would be more effort put into the story. It's a clunky mess that tries to combine the Bourne identity mixed with whatever Nicholas Sparks book is out there at the time. Yeah, and I know I stumbled in that last bit, but you know what? Screw it. I don't care. Moving on. Number 3, Red Riding Hood. Another Twilight knockoff, only this time it comes from the director of the first Twilight movie. Only difference is this is ungodly worse. Seriously, this film tries so desperately to be like the Twilight franchise that they literally have two characters look as much like Edward and Jacob as possible. Even when you have powerhouse actors like Virginia Madsen and Gary Oldman, the acting is dreadful beyond belief, especially with a lead as awful as Amanda Seyfried. As one of the first films that I saw when I started reviewing, I should have taken this as a sign that I was going to be seeing a lot of shit if I keep this up. Oh, and did I forget to mention that this film was produced by Leonardo DiCaprio? Number 2, The Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 1. Here it is, one of the most uninteresting stories ever told, and, without a doubt, the worst chapter yet. Seriously, nothing about this film or any of these characters at this point comes close to being relevant in today's world, or anything that could be remotely good. The way they try to represent romance of any kind is so bad, so uninteresting, so underdeveloped, so unquestionably agonizing that I actually walked out on this movie, something I have never done before. And it only took me until watching a film on DVD to realize that, oh wait, this isn't the worst film of the year. That, of course, goes to number 1, The Roommate. Pop quiz. How do you make one of the worst psychological films ever made? You take a director who can't direct, a writer who can't write for beans, a cast that is entirely wasted with it, a horrible representation of schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, characters you grow to hate with each passing second that they're on screen, and you have what we call The Roommate. I feel like the only horror aspect about this film was how audiences feel about sitting through such a shitfest as this. There's nothing worth value to this film, and it felt like having a bad scab pain while someone is poking at you with a needle. Actually, that's just being unfair to the needle. Fuck this movie, fuck the people behind it, and fuck you, Screen Gems! Ugh.
Wasn't that great? Check in very soon, and I'll have my best of 2011 coming at you very soon.